What do we mean by self-reliance? The term was first coined by an American philosopher, Ralph Waldo Emerson, way back in 1841 in an iconic essay. At the time, he meant it as part of an American individualism, a rugged, outward-looking one, so characteristic of the frontier landscape back then. Now, this has a lot of overlaps with Australia's sort of early settlement. Now, Emerson spoke of being able to think for oneself and not be subject to the whims of the herd. Now, this is relevant today in our censorious climate, where it can be quite difficult expressing one's thoughts freely. But even back in 1841, Emerson latched onto the notion speaking freely was intricately linked to being able to think clearly. A modern definition of the idea of self-reliance from psychology is a reliance on internal resources to provide life with coherence and fulfillment. Now, different aspects of this kind of independence include 1. Financial security. Now, many of us don't realise that much of your life's earnings will be from unearned income, from appreciation of your investments. Now, this also insulates us from greater needs from government and elsewhere. But financial independence is not just about money. It signals some of the most important traits in healthy flourishing, and namely the ability to defer gratification, plan for the future, and sustain good habits, persistence. Now, this is why parental income is such a marker of future success of a child. It's not just the money, but it's the habits and disciplines that allow for the steady accumulation of wealth. Now, the mindset of poverty is the psychology of present mindedness. Now, another important part of self-reliance are good behavioural habits. Now, even addiction is essentially an unhealthy routine that your mind and body just start experiencing as normal. This is why things that sound trivial, like tidying up your room, eating regular meals, and waking up at a decent hour, matter. Now, emotional regulation is obviously a big issue that I see among my young patients. Now, being able to deal with negative emotions and self-soothe when things don't go our way is a critical part of emotional health. Problems here usually originate from early life, bonding, or from growing up in conflicted households. Now, problematic behaviours like self-harm are linked to internalising rage and frustration because we can't deal with it healthily in other ways. Now, being too focused on positivity, and this is sometimes called toxic positivity, this can actually be an issue in those who have an inability to tolerate negative emotions like shame, disgust, and anger. Now, there's also evidence that upcoming generations, they have fewer hours of face-to-face contact with their peers. Now, this also limits their ability to recognise social cues and process the difficult emotions I already mentioned. So a good modern way to think about Emerson's self-reliance is to consider the factors we need to enable 1. Financial, 2. Behavioural, and 3. Emotional independence.